Here's a picture I took of Toledo, Spain, a really ancient city with a lot of great stuff to see, but if you head outside of it, then you can see the castle that's in the background, way up on the hill there. You see that? Not the foreground. That we're going to tour today. The first mention of it is from the late 9th century. It was presumably built by the Moors, then later taken over by the Spanish. It's the Castillo de Almonacid. I don't have the Spanish accent. I have the Latin American accent, but Almonacid, legend has it that name has a tie to El Cid, probably the most famous knight from the wars of conquest and reconquest, right, between the Spanish and the Moors. There's the community down below, which I'm sure is the exact same spot it's been in ever since antiquity. The castle sits on a commanding height. It doesn't look that impressive here. I mean, the castle does, but you'll see how high up it really is in a minute. Here's one of the major towers, has round and square towers, and here's what I was talking about. Quite a view, and you can see why they chose that spot for a castle. You can see what's indicated by the video's title, which is that this is an abandoned castle. You actually just drive right up to it. We got a cab, asked the guy to take us here. He said we were the first ones to ever ask him that, which is amazing because look how stunning this is. And yeah, we just checked it out. It's about 20 kilometers from Toledo. No gate, no tickets, no nothing. You're free to explore. You'll catch a glimpse of my sneaker here, and that'll give you a sense of scale as I look down one part of the walls. Here you see kind of a forward position, right? So where you have a battlement that's out in front of the main wall and lower down. It's got the crenellations, so presumably soldiers could fire from here, harass incoming troops, and then I would assume retreat behind the main walls if necessary. I've always wondered about this kind of structure, like why not just stay behind the big, really tall walls? This seems like it could be overrun more easily. Well, it certainly could be overrun more easily, but I guess it's another impediment for any attempt to batter or scale the main walls. Let's check out some close-up construction. It was really neat to be able to check something like this out at leisure. The castle came under the possession of the Spanish, King Alfonso IV. He donated it to the Archbishop of Toledo in 1086, and it received additional construction in the 14th century. This square tower is in the courtyard. It's the keep, right? This would be your last refuge when all else failed. There I am, give you a sense of scale. I'm obviously in front of one of the towers. The literature says there are 2 square and 3 round towers. Sunset was obviously a fantastic time for picture and video taking. That was all accidental, but I think it worked out really well. Back to the central keep, you can see it has a defensive wall on the left there, guarding its door. And back to the amazing view. It's this real, Don Quixote-ish landscape, just fantastic, and no one was going to sneak up on this castle, not in the daytime anyway. You have a 360-degree view that goes quite a ways. Just spectacular. Unsurprisingly, movie makers have utilized this location before. Here's just one example. The great Terry Gilliam used it for The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. This shot from the making of that movie actually gives you a great sense of space. It really gives you the chance to imagine, groups of men-at-arms, like roughly how many would be housed here, housed during a time of war, don't know. But unless you could break through siege lines, you were going to run out of food and water at some point. There are cisterns in the castle, but no natural well, so you had a limited amount of water, and it's pretty barren, as you can see. But for as long as the defenders could keep full stomachs, then this would be a very difficult place to take because of that angle of ascent that you saw. And I'll show you some more of that. You're just not going to have an easy time trying to get any kind of equipment up there, much less operate it, especially anything in terms of like battering rams for the gates or the walls. There's a reason that when you were in this part of the country, seemingly every hill had had the ruins of a castle or of a small fort on it. In fact, there's another castle that you can see in the distance from here, and that's what it's like. So it's just this chain of castles, this moving frontier, right? The Reconquest, La Reconquista. It was a long process, pushing the Moors southward and eventually out of the peninsula, so you have a lot of leftover castles. Here's a great view of the keep, the central tower. Now, the thing about this is, you could get into that fastness if the enemy managed to, break in to the walls, but you'd pretty much be done at that point unless somebody came to rescue you. Then it was just a waiting game because you're completely surrounded and there's not a lot of space in here. This is a 3-story tower. And let's look at the inside. There's my foot again at the bottom of the screen for a sense of scale, and yeah, you can see it's just not a lot of square footage, right? So yes, I did some ill-advised climbing in more than one spot to get some pictures. The ceiling and or floors, the wooden ones that would have made for the divisions of the 3 stories, of course, are long gone, but man, it would have been cramped inside each one of those. Here's a great view up. I'll show you a different part of the ceiling here, and talk about the castle a little more. It saw a lot of action, as you can imagine, all the way to the 19th century, if you can believe it. Early 19th century, that is. So 1809, the Spanish used it as a base against the occupying French. So yeah, this fort here was part of the Napoleonic Wars. The Spanish lost the battle. That was on August the 11th, 1809. They lost 4,000 troops to France's 2,000. So quite a bit of action for that late into history. Well, I've shown a lot of military antiques on this channel. This one here is certainly the largest, and probably the most beautiful, too. Thanks.